It's funny how pop culture can sort of alter your perception of a film. Not long ago, I had watched Saturday Night Fever for the first time, and going into it, having absorbed a lifetime's worth of memes, references, and homages related to the film, I was anticipating a sort of fun, campy disco movie. Imagine my surprise then when the film was actually a poignant, at times bleak, coming-of-age story about a young working-class Italian-American man in 1970s New York. I kind of felt like I had been lied to, that all those memes, references, and homages had been part of some conspiracy to paint the film as something it wasn't. There was also a heavily edited PG version of the film that might have had something to do with it, but that's a story for another time. All of this brings me to 1995's Waterworld, another film whose reputation seems to have gotten away from it a bit. For a long time, the film was synonymous with catastrophe.
38, 39, 40 quarters. This better be good.
Game over. Please deposit 40 quarters.
What a rip!
A bloated budget, an extended shoot, creative differences, and an underperformance at the box office all earned the film a reputation as something silly and self-indulgent.
Waterworld was simply Mad Max on jet skis. Not original and always very grim. Just what we want from Kevin Costner in an action picture. He's miserable on screen to all people all the time.
Yeah, it's a real downer. And you know, when you think about these two movies and the resources that went into them and the millions and tens of millions of dollars, you realize...
Oh, that one where it really is the most expensive. They built this huge thing out there, and they found that it rocks and ruins some of the shots. And you're in that? It's the most expensive movie in the history of this planet. When you hear money talked about like that, ever have that cliched thought, and they don't have enough money to keep the kids' mission open in Harlem, and they don't have enough money to keep the this and that. Well, what's the chance of this aqueous turkey getting onto the screen finally?
Oh, it's going to be there. It's a wonderful film, actually.
For a long time, it was considered the high watermark for cinematic excess, the box office failure by which all subsequent failures were measured. Over time, however, the film seems to have gained a bit of a cult following, and its reputation seems to have improved somewhat, especially in the wake of multiple high-profile critical and commercial failures that have inspired people to look back and wonder, you know, maybe we were too hard on Waterworld. After all, the thing did eventually break even, and it doesn't even make the list for the biggest box office failures of all time. So almost 30 years later, after all the dust has settled, the only question that remains is Waterworld any good? Was it worth all the fuss? Yeah, it's not bad. Some of the world building is maybe a bit undercooked. Apparently the world ended long enough ago that no one knows they live above flooded cities, and yet the bad guys still managed to luck into an oil tanker stocked with cigarettes, spam, and jet skis. There are some tonal inconsistencies where Waterworld, as this harsh, unforgiving place populated by nihilists and perverts, doesn't always gel with Waterworld as a place of swashbuckling high adventure. That said, there is a lot to like here. For one thing, you can definitely see the budget on screen. Even if during production Waterworld's reach might have exceeded its grasp, you can't say the film's ambition never amounts to anything. Real boats race across real open water, interacting with full-scale sets. Stuntmen are flung about with wild abandon. There's the aforementioned old-school swashbuckling charm that recalls the films of Errol Flynn. Meanwhile, there's Dennis Hopper chewing scenery like a madman, and you can never really go wrong with that.
You know, I thought you were stupid, friend, but I underestimated you. You were a total freaking retard.
Probably the most standout part of the film, though, is the Mariner, played by Kevin Costner. While the gruff, amoral action hero who by the end embraces his better nature has long been a staple of the genre, the Mariner is a bit different in that he's the only one I can think of who might be considered full-blown autistic. The Mariner isn't much for social graces.
Captain talk all the time. Storm when you're around.
No, hey! What are you doing? Come here! I'm here!
He likes his personal space. The Mariner gets overstimulated sometimes.
It's too strange here. It doesn't move right.
The mariner is shy around girls unless he knows they like him first. The mariner pees in bottles. Most importantly is the mariner's relationship with his boat.
My boat.
The mariner is fixated on his boat. He doesn't like people touching it, and it makes him real upset when they do.
Don't ever touch anything on my boat again.
It's on his boat where the mariner really comes alive. If he might not be the best with people, if he might not be the best at regulating his emotions, his boat reveals him as an avant-garde of aquatic engineering. He's a Mozart of the high seas. This special little guy knows his boat like he knows the back of his hand. This is a guy who thrives in his environment, who is literally made for it. If the world itself might feel a bit undercooked, the mariner and his Swiss Army boat help fill in some of the blanks. The guy is a sort of culture unto himself, the only one who knows Waterworld's past while also being a possible trajectory for its future. Another interesting component is the way in which the mariner's autism is sort of reflected in the production of the film itself, in its insistence on authenticity in the face of impracticality, in the persistence it must have taken to actually finish making the thing. What doomed the film at the time of its release remains one of the most interesting things about it. So, Waterworld, is it a cinematic cautionary tale? Is it an underrated sci-fi adventure? Or is it something in between? Was the film unfairly maligned in its time, or has the cultural malaise of today simply made it look better by comparison? Let me know what you think. Okay, goodbye.
Oh, thank God.